All right. Hello, everyone. I don't even know if anybody's here yet. Oh, nope, we've got one comment. Okay, I feel better about not talking to ourselves. Well, welcome for those of you that are here. Oh, we've got 9 people tuning in. Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. We are going to do an AMA today. For those of you that don't know what an AMA is it's just an ask me anything. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Vicky Weber. I am a literary agent, a children's picture book author, and the founder of At Home Author, where I and my colleagues create as much content as possible for aspiring writers. So they're a little bit less lost than I was. And I've got Josh with me today. I'll let Josh introduce himself.
Hey everyone, I am Josh Becker. I'm the author of a children's book series on science and critical thinking called AnnabelleandEden.com is the website. I have a Kickstarter going on now at itsgottoBeMagic.com, and I am excited about that. I'm excited to talk about marketing and all the things that I've done and all the experience that I've gained and knowledge that I've gained in marketing my books and building Kickstarters. This is my 10th Kickstarter actually, and I am a trademark attorney with 15-20 years of experience in trademarks and copyrights. So I'm excited to tell you all and answer your questions about how to protect your intellectual property and your branding and your books.
Okay, so while we're waiting for questions to pour in, if you've got a question, just pop it in the chat and we will get to that. I would love to know, Josh, how much of your previous knowledge and background has influenced you writing and publishing picture books? Like, how has that gone together?
Like, why did I start publishing children's books? I always love to write, and I always love. So there's a few angles I could attack this. I'm a philosophy major. I love the line between science and philosophy and big questions like how did we get here? How did humans get here? How did our universe get here? I'm just excited about those kind of questions. And I actually wrote a novel. It took me 5 years to write. When I was in law school, I wrote a novel. It took me 5 years. It came out to about 900 pages, and I had to edit it down. It was kind of crazy. But I actually was able to sell it to not literally sell it, but sell the idea to a law professor to make it like a research paper in law school. And he gave me like 2 A's on it, and it increased my GPA and all that. So that was fun. And then I'm like, wow, I'm never doing that again. I'm never writing a novel again, but I love to write. So what can I write that won't take 5 years? And I could really, put my ideas into it. And that's how I came to children's books.
Wow.
Yes,
Um, so when you're doing all of this writing, sorry, I'm like managing all of my screens over here.
all good.
Um, oh, we just got our first question come in. Perfect, because I'm like trying to think on my feet. Regarding IP, um, ooh, okay. Author works being scraped and used to train AI without author knowledge and compensation. So it's not really a question, but more of a, is this happening? How can we prevent it? So I think the tricky thing on my end is it depends on like where your book is available. Because if something is just out in the open in the public, it's very hard to protect against really anything scraping stuff without knowledge or consent. But I don't know how much control you have over that. Like if somebody were to, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'll get to that. Also, I want to say we do have 2 questions that someone posted in the comments of your post, Vicky, in that large Facebook group. So we
Ooh,
do
I'll pull
have
that
those
up too.
questions as well. Yeah, I could pull that up if you want as well. I am not, I think Congress is just behind, and I think they're scrambling to figure this out. I don't have the answer to that. But we have to stay on top and see what they're going to do. The law is always 5 to 10 years behind. So we just have to wait and see. It's hard to say because AI is not copying your work. Arguably, they're copying parts of your work, which they shouldn't do, but they're pulling from your work and a lot of other works, which is kind of what we all do. We're all borrowing a little bit, especially in music, when I think half of rock songs are all based on the same chord progression. So we're all borrowing. AI is borrowing. Congress is going to figure this out. I don't know if there's really any way to protect your work from that right now. The best thing you could do is, I mean, definitely you want to register for a copyright. You want to submit a copyright application. Beyond that, I don't know what we could do to protect from AI yet. We have to wait for Congress, who is behind, to figure something out.
Yeah, and I would say too, just like be aware and be diligent and know what resources you have available to you. And um, maybe don't post your whole story in a blog post on your website or something like that. Things like that can give you that extra layer of protection. But yeah, I agree. But I would also say if we were to rewind, there's an author that I know who published a book with a traditional press that was fairly successful. And then somebody else published a book that was very, very similar. So the author sued, for copyright infringement, but because none of the actual content was directly copied, he ended up losing that lawsuit. It wasn't close enough. So that's probably the worst part about this industry, is that when it's anything creative, um it's not a very clear line. It's not like a yes or no. So yeah, I think the best thing you can do is just stay diligent, be careful, and aware of where you're sharing things, who you're sharing them with. It's a long conversation. We could probably talk about this whole time, I think. Okay, I'm pulling up some other questions, but this one is Sophie asked, do I need to enlist the help of a TM lawyer before publishing my book?
Okay, so I'm going to divide that into two questions, which is, do I need a trademark lawyer at all to file for a trademark? And two, when do I file for a trademark? So, oh gosh. Okay, I need more context to answer that question. It depends what you're trying to get a trademark on. Are you trying to get a trademark on your author name? Are you trying to get a trademark on your book series name? Those are so three things that authors want to get a trademark on, possibly, is, I think the most important thing is if you have a book series and the book series has a name, that book series name is really what you're trying to market and get out to the public and invest in, to get some brand recognition and consumer recognition. So I think you want to protect that first if you have a book series name. And then the second priority, I would say, is your author name. You're not really using your author name so much as a brand, but if you have 2 or more books, you kind of are. You are starting to use it as a brand. So then there's that. And then the third thing is a publishing company. If you have a publishing company that's publishing other authors' works, or even just your own work, under your author name, you might want to protect that, depending on how much of a priority that is to you. To answer your question, okay, you
Sophie
are
did
not,
say in that that she doesn't know because she's still in the baby steps of writing and illustrating.
okay.
As far as
So you want to wait. Actually, that's not necessarily true. It depends. There's so much information. Okay, hold on. Okay, you are not required to hire a trademark lawyer to file an application. It is not a requirement, but it is highly recommended to speak with a trademark attorney. You could talk to me too. I actually, in my Kickstarter, if you go to itsgottobe magic.com, and I should have opened with this, there is a reward that you could select where you could talk to me for 1 hour. And on that phone call, we could work out a plan if you need more time. So that's, I mean, a trademark lawyer is going to charge you about anywhere between $700 to $1,200 to file a trademark. If you, but I could help you if you check out that reward for a tenth of the price. I'm happy to do that. So you should talk to a trademark lawyer. Or you could do a lot of research, and you could do it yourself. If you have, okay, so I can't. It's a long answer. When you file a trademark application, you could tell them, I'm not using the trademark yet, but I will use it within 6 months. So you could file the application now if you want to get priority and hold down your name, Sophie. So you could file it now. But eventually you're going to need 2 or more books. You cannot, when you file a trademark application, you can't, you have to eventually have your author name or your series name, whatever you're trying to protect, on at least 2 books. So only the earliest time where you should file a trademark application is when you're going to have 2 books out within 6 months.
Yeah, and I would say too, think about what your priorities are and what is important to you or not, because there are plenty of authors who never get a trademark. Like I certainly haven't done that for any of my titles. But it really comes down to what you want to do with that brand. And that is going to vary from author to author. So I would just say, if you're still in the writing and illustrating phase, I would focus on the writing and illustrating phase. There's a lot to know, all at the same time. And I think it just take this piece off of your plate for now, and then circle back to it a little bit later. Focus on the craft things while you've got that time.
Sophie asked for the link. I just want to, the link is under my name. It's got2be magic.com. Sophie was asking for the link.
Oh, yeah, and it's also in the video description, and you'll see it in a little ticker occasionally when I click the button. Yep, we had another one here. Let me put it back up here real quick since we've got multiple people asking. It's got2be magic.com, and again, it will be in the description of the video as well. I'm looking at the Facebook group, and actually you answered part of that question with Sophie's. It was the when thing. And then second part here, do you recommend a Kickstarter to help increase visibility for a book series, or is it really only effective to gain capital?
The first option, 500%. Kickstarter is not just to gain capital at all for me, and I think for everyone. It's so much to build community, to make people feel like they're part of the book, to get their name in the book, to get your stickers. Every single time someone pledges even $1 to your Kickstarter campaign, you get their email address. They're basically paying you to join your email list, and you're building a community. And every single Kickstarter campaign I do, I message through the Kickstarter system. I message them that I have a new Kickstarter, and that way I'm reaching people, not only people that like my books, but people that have a Kickstarter account already and trust the platform. It's really building a community. Every single one of my children's books has a page with all the children's faces that people paid that they could email me. Basically, they purchased a reward to get their children's faces in the book. It's just a very exciting way to build community and excitement around your books. just as much, if not more, than it is just to build capital.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I would also say I've run a Kickstarter before, and I liked it, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, that's my only caveat if you're gonna do anything Kickstarter related. Um, anything worth doing is worth doing well, and that means you'll want to take your time. You don't just, slap something up. You need to focus on that community building, that engagement. Think through what your tiers are going to be. Get feedback. I mean, even the graphics make a very big difference. So yeah, it's more than just raising the money. It's also about visibility, but be prepared for the work that goes into it. No different than a book launch.
Right. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. I mean,
Mhm.
I have the person that I hire to make my graphics. I know which graphics to make. I know, what month to start in, what day of the week to start, what time of the day to start. You learn these tricks, and you're the people that give to your first kick. My first Kickstarter raised $4,400. My second Kickstarter raised 8,000. My third raised 12,000. My fourth raised $24,000. It goes up each time. And then and then they went down a little, and then it went way up, and then it went down again. But generally they build upon each other, and it gets easier. And you build a community of people who have Kickstarter accounts, who are notified automatically every time you launch a Kickstarter.
Yeah, I get those every time. Support
Yeah.
another project by.
Yeah.
Um, okay, here we've got another one. I think this one's for me. Would there be different querying requirements depending on the genre? Like, would one genre place more importance on comps than another? Okay, the short answer is no, but let me explain comps a little bit more first. So, for those of you that don't know, comps are comparable titles. In self-publishing, those are the things that you would use to like target in an Amazon ad, or in a conversation with a bookstore or a book buyer, you would demonstrate like, here's where this book would sit on the shelf. In querying to get a literary agent, comps are, for lack of a better phrase, evidence that your book will sell. It's, my book will sit beside these on the bookshelf. These are the readers who would want it, that type of a thing. So when I get a query in and it says, there are no comps, that to me says, this doesn't fit at the I would give this to a bookstore and they would stare at me. They'd have no idea where to put it, and not in a good way. They wouldn't have no idea who to advertise it to. That's what that says. So comp titles are important in any genre, but it's not just about the title or having them. It's about the elements. So is your writing voice similar to author A? Or is would readers of this book's humor also appreciate the humor in your book? Like, the whole purpose is pinpointing who would read your book, who would want your book, because that helps an agent understand, ooh, these are the editors I could send it to, or these are the publishing houses I could send it to. So comps are important across all genres. It's just a matter of how they're being used. On the querying side, it's showing an agent where your book is placed in the market. And on the self-publishing side, it helps you sell either directly to bookstores, maybe pitch to distributors. Your distributors could use it to pitch to bigger stores. Or you're running direct Amazon ads direct to them on Amazon. Hopefully that answered that question. Let me see. Oh, and we got another one. Okay, when it comes to the querying stage, is it more important to get the hook right and the first few pages on point? I'm assuming that means than having a polished manuscript. If you're querying, your manuscript should nearly be publication ready. Agents don't sign things on potential, especially with volume. I think in January alone, I got 993 queries, like just for the month. So for the querying stage, you need both of those things. Your manuscript needs to be as close to publication ready as possible. And you need a hook to stand out. That was a short one. Let's see. Ooh. What's the best approach for marketing for indie authors? Curious to hear your thoughts on this, Josh.
People are going to have different opinions about this, and I think most of them are right. So I'm curious to hear your answer. For me, the two most, oh gosh. So for me, I mean, right away in my brain, Facebook. I built a Facebook page. I tell people, do not name the Facebook page after your name unless you're a celebrity. People don't care who you are. I like to give the example of like a really busy mom in line at the supermarket with two or little kids, and she's flipping through Facebook and she sees a Facebook page called Andy Smith, author, or Jim Goldberg, author. Are they going to like that page? No, they don't care. But if they see a Facebook page called Secular Science Stories for Kids or Social and Emotional Parenting Tips, that they're going to like. So connect your Facebook page to the cause of your book, not to your book. It should not be about your book. Your book should be incidental to it. I think you should build a Facebook page and become an influencer in that field, in that area. And do not post about your books. Post once a day about current events happening, about whatever it is, feminism, anti-feminism, whatever your cause is, science, social emotional parenting. And then on Friday at 1:00, when people are eating lunch and they're happy because of the weekend's here and they're getting paid and they feel like they have money, that's when you post about your books once a week. Kickstarter is amazing. And Amazon ads, I think if you really want to sell in bulk, is pretty much necessary. All right. Vicky, I'm handing you the mic.
Well, I was going to say, I've never heard, I mean, I always tell people to post sparingly about their book, but that's the first time I've heard that Friday advice. And I think that is such good advice because I say the same thing about launching a book and marketing in January. I'm like, don't spend too much time or money on ads in the first 2 weeks of January because people don't have any money and they're not back at work yet. They haven't gotten that, like, they're still recovering from those holidays. So I think that just goes to show to think about buyer habits, and especially how they relate to your book. So here's the other component. Many of my self-published titles personally are not geared towards parents. They're geared towards elementary school teachers, which means while other authors are, running around like crazy people for, Christmas and holiday sales, my sales actually dip very low because they're meant to be curriculum based. They're meant to be used in the classroom. So the closer we get to that holiday season, teachers aren't buying books for themselves at that point. They're buying gifts. So the money's not there for me. My big Christmas-like season is actually August and July, right before the school year starts. Back to school season is my huge boom. And I didn't anticipate that the first time. But once I thought about those buyer habits, I'm like, ooh, that actually makes perfect sense for my audience. So I would say my short answer to the best approach for marketing is to know your audience really well and then build a marketing plan. It does not matter how you build a marketing plan. It could be in sticky notes on a wall. It could be notes in your phone, well organized, hopefully. It could be something digital. A marketing plan is just a plan for what strategies you're going to do, when you're going to do them, how you're going to do them, and maybe what your budget is. And to me, marketing is like a puzzle. If you just have one piece, you don't have a complete picture. So if you're only doing one marketing thing, you might get some good results, but it's going to be a lot easier on you if those puzzle pieces work together. You know, if your community is then training your ads, what your audience is, so then your ads do a little bit better, you know, let the things work together. And that takes time and also being organized. You don't want to be so slow that it takes too long for your audience to build, but you also don't want to try and master 100 things all at once and not do any of them well. So I actually don't know if that was helpful. I guess best is a very loose term. I think it'll change from book to book and author to author. You just have to put a plan in place. You have to make a plan. Don't throw spaghetti at a wall. Okay, let me see. Ooh, this is the U one, Josh.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what is the difference between a trademark after a brand and a T in a circle? You mean an R in a circle? I've never seen a T in a circle. So if you see a T in a circle, you should be concerned that they have no idea what they're doing. I think what you mean is an R in the circle. Okay. So a TM after a brand name or a logo, a TM means we do not yet have, means they're telling you we do not yet have a registered trademark, but we are claiming trademark rights in this. We applied for it. We're waiting for the registration to come through. An R or an R in a circle stands for registered trademark. It means we have a registered trademark. So you're not supposed to put the R until you actually have a registration on your trademark. But once you apply, you could put a TM. And
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're putting the public on notice that you claim trademark rights in this, and we didn't get a registration yet, but we're waiting for it, but you shouldn't apply because we claim rights, we claim priority.
So, okay, so that leads to a question of my own. What happens if you go to register your trademark and learn that either something is already trademarked or there's something in the works? What
You're
what
refused.
happens then?
You're refused. You're refused. Your trademark application gets refused. That's one of the 4 or 5 main reasons why your trademark application will be refused, because someone else got it first. And that's why you want to act as quickly as you can, Sophie. You know, I spoke with 5 or 6 authors over the past week or two that that went to my Kickstarter and purchased that, you know, 1-hour phone call. And out of the 5 of them, one of them is having trouble because their trademark, you know, someone else got something very similar to it first. But at least we caught it early, and you know, this person is able to, you know, they haven't yet invested too much money or months or years or emotions into the brand name or the logo, so they're able to change it. But yeah, every time you file a trademark, the trademark office does a trademark search. That's why you should have a lawyer do a search for you before you file a trademark. Yeah, and that's, yeah, you should call me,
Okay.
basically, people. Yeah.
Okay, here's one. My daughter and I wrote and illustrated a book together. She designed stuffed animal prints, prints, cards, and much more. We haven't formed a company. Do we do a trademark together?
It depends how much you like your daughter. So any applicant to a trademark application, it could be an individual like yourself, or if you want to work with someone, then you could form an LLC or a partnership with them, where you, whatever state you're in, you go to the, put into Google, whatever state you're in, Colorado, Secretary of State's office, go to the Secretary of State's office, Or put into Google Colorado LLC, fill out the application, pay $100, $200, whatever the state chart. It's not so hard. Make an LLC or a partnership, probably an LLC, and then you could do a trademark together. Or two individuals could do a trademark together. You don't need an LLC. You could just list your daughter as one individual and you as another individual as co-applicants, and you will both have an indivisible joint ownership of the trademark.
I will say too, on the topic of LLCs, if you are going to self-publish, I highly recommend you get an LLC, because what happens is if you don't have an LLC and you self-publish and you get sued for whatever reason, if you don't have an LLC, in that lawsuit, they could pursue your personal assets, like your house, your car, those type of things. If you have an LLC formed, then they can only go after the basically the business or the company's assets, which would not include your house and your car and such. And so if you are self-publishing, I always recommend that you get an LLC. There's a couple other ways that you can do it. Like you could do a DBA, or there's a couple other routes, but LLC is really easy to do. And just the peace of mind is very helpful.
Yep. That's why it's called limited liability company. Your liability is then limited. You have a corporate shield.
Okay, so here's a good one. At what point would an agent or traditional publisher be interested in a self-published or independently published work or author? This answer is depends on who you ask, because there are some agents and traditional publishers that will say, I'm never interested in that. But I can say with confidence that there is always that possibility. There are tons of self-published books that went on to get picked up by traditional publishers, but they had massive success. 50 Shades of Grey was originally self-published. The Velveteen Rabbit, Aragon. There's another one that was recent. Quicksilver. There's plenty of them out there, but you'll notice they all have one thing in common: massive success. Because if you self-publish a book and you only sell 50 copies, an agent or a publisher is going to say, okay, but it's out there in the market right now and people aren't buying it. So how would we make money off of it? People aren't buying it. So that's really the short answer, is you would need a strong sales track record. And that number will vary from genre to genre. In picture books, I would say impressive sales is probably like 5,000 to 10,000 copies per year. Depending on how long it's been published and, whether it's more trade or educational market, etc. But for novels, that number is going to be a lot higher. So you'll want to look up your specific genre and try to estimate what are the average sales within this age group and genre, and see how yours compares. Let me see. Ooh. Haha. Okay, well, you kind of touched on this a little bit, Josh.
Should I go ahead?
Yeah.
I'll read quick. Basically, Sean wants to know, he wants me to expand on what is and is not author brand. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but what I suspect you're asking is, what are we protecting? I'll try to give this short. So not included in your question is, if you want to protect your book as a work of art, so no one could copy the main creative elements in your book, which include the plot and the main characters, et cetera, insofar as they're unique and creative, you want to get a copyright on your book. But that's not what you're asking about. You're asking about branding. Branding is trademark. So here are again, the three things that you probably want to protect with your trademark. One is the name of your book series. You cannot get a trademark on the title of a single book, but you can and absolutely should get a trademark on the name of your book series. And not just the name of your book series, but your logo. And if you have like a character who's a mascot, like Tony the Tiger type of thing, right? Who's that tiger? Whatever. Who's that children's book tiger? Tony, oh gosh. Whatever.
I'm like, what about Elephant and Piggy? Those are
My
trademarks.
3-year-old listens to Daniel
Tiger.
Thank you.
Which tiger?
But I don't want to use the word character because that really confuses people. To answer your question, Sean, you want to protect the name of your book series, which includes the logo of your book series, or if it's stylized in a certain font or color. That's number one. Number two is your author name. And number three, which isn't really author, but if you have a publishing company, the name of your publishing company. But that's less important. If you're just making a publishing company just to publish your own work under, you probably don't want to invest in that because you don't really care if people don't know the name of it. You just created it so you could publish your own book. However, if you actually have a real publishing company that you want to get out there, then you want to protect the name and logo of that publishing company. But the most important thing is the name of your book series.
Okay, so here's one that kind of elaborates a little bit. So does a trademark bleed over into more than just the book? You talked about logo.
Great question.
But yeah.
Yeah, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Oh gosh. Okay, so every day I'll get a trademark for like
Wait, I gotta show this.
Right. So it bleeds into it, and the bleeding starts to fade the farther you go out. So like, let's say you get a trademark. So every time you get a trademark, you have to list the goods and services that you're protecting. So let's say you list printed books, right? So you have a trademark on printed books. So that bleeds out onto ebooks because almost every author that has a printed book also has an ebook. Then it keeps bleeding out onto merchandise, but the bleeding is much thinner. Your protection over your merchandise is much thinner. It's not as powerful. So what you should have done if you're selling merchandise is you should have listed merchandise in your application. But the more things you list, the more money it costs generally. That's why, because you're having more protection. So yeah, it bleeds, but the bleeding fades. Podcasting, the bleeding is not so strong. Your protection is not so strong. You want to list podcast in your trademark application if you have a podcast. But yeah, every day I'll get a trademark for like beer, like the name of a beer, and then I find out someone else is using that same name, but they're selling alcoholic seltzer, right? So you want to ask, so every day I ask myself, should I refuse this application because someone already has it for alcoholic seltzer or wine, but this is for beer. So what I do is I'll refuse it, but I have to find evidence to support my refusal. So I don't know if I mentioned I work for the trademark office. So this is what I do. I'm the one getting the applications. So I'll refuse it, but I'll have to find evidence of companies that make both seltzer and beer. So it goes by, it's called same source evidence or single source evidence. The more, if the same types of companies or people are providing those two types of goods, then your protection largely bleeds over those goods. I hope that answers your question.
Follow up, BookTalk. Do we love it or hate it? And how does Trademark bleed into this platform?
I don't know what BookTalk is. Do you want to tell me, Vic?
BookTalk is TikTok, but the book
Oh,
realm of it, where people are just like hashtag BookTalk.
so when you have a trademark, you on the trademark application, you're listing what goods or services you're providing. So if you let's say you list printed books and someone on TikTok is using that trademark to promote their new ice cream flavor, you can't stop them. But if they're using it on TikTok to promote their printed books, then you can stop them. TikTok, in that way, TikTok is the same as social media and commercials on TV. It doesn't matter if it's TikTok or not, it's all the same. Your protection, your trademark protection allows you to stop other people from using your trademark or anything closely similar, confusingly similar to your trademark for the same goods and services listed in your trademark registration or goods and services that are strikingly similar.
Gotcha. That was very well worded. I'm like, I'm learning so much. I love it.
Awesome.
Okay. Is it better to work with a publisher first and then self-publish later? I've got a whole spiel on this, but I'm going to condense it down. The short answer is, I think this is the second time, Sophie, I've noticed you use the word, is it better? And I want you to erase that from your mind. I want you to think about, is it better for me? Is it better for my book? Because the two routes are very different. As somebody who is actively on both sides of the industry, they work very differently. They both have pros and cons. And so one is not better than the other necessarily. And in fact, I would argue that in some ways they are bleeding and blending together more than ever before. It's about what's best for you. So it's not as simple as just working with a publisher. A publisher has to accept you. It's kind of like an application. You need to get an agent, and then an agent needs to send it out on submission. So it's not as simple as just using a publisher, right? Self-publishing isn't as simple as just throwing something up on Amazon, though. So research both routes and look at your goals, your priority, your budget, your time constraints, your personality type. If you do not want to be involved in every step of the process, self-publishing might not be the best fit. But if you're like, yes, I want to be involved, this excites me, I want to have my hand in all of the pots, then self-publishing might be the right fit. So think about it from that lens rather than one is better than the other, because that's not really how it works. Oh, I actually meant to ask this earlier and I forgot. Because you mentioned that you can't trademark a title. You
Correct.
also can't copyright a title.
Correct.
So I'm interested to hear your answer on this.
Okay, so asking what's the difference between copyrights and trademarks is sort of like asking what's the difference between house insurance and car insurance. They protect different things. They're the same thing, but they're also not the same thing at all. They cost different, they last, they're just different. Let's say you're Rembrandt and you're painting paintings and you're trying to sell the paintings under the brand name Rembrandt. You want to, copyright law protects the content of your paintings. Trademark, whenever you see the word trademark, think branding. Okay, think, so he would get a trademark on the word um Rembrandt, right? They're just totally different. I can't answer it better than that. Copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years after their death. It protects your work. It stops people from copying your children's book story. A trademark stops people from copying the name of your book series, like Harry Potter. They're completely different in that way. That's really all I could say. A trademark lasts forever. A copyright costs about $75. A trademark costs a few $100s. They protect different things and they're just different like that. Just like car insurance and house insurance protect different things. That's all I
Is
could
the
say.
cost different by where you live? Or is it just no?
Well,
It's
for a
just yours.
federal copyrights are only federal. Trademarks, you could get a state trademark or a federal trademark. It's almost never, it's almost always pointless to get a state trademark when you could just get a federal one. It costs the same no matter where you live.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Ooh, okay. Sorry, John.
It's all good.
We
How
have a long one.
how can an author only picture book writer self-publish? How can an author only picture book writer self do they is
So they're not an illustrator themselves.
do
They
they
only write the
okay.
words.
Well, it looks like the first two questions are for both of us, Vicky. I don't know who they want to take it. Um, do you want to take? I mean, the answer is yes. You approach an illustrator. You find an illustrator. That's what I
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
that's really the short answer is is if you want to self-publish, first make sure the book is really well written first because there's
Right.
nothing worse than hiring an illustrator and then realizing you need to like fix your story arc and then oh no, now the art doesn't fit and you have to get it re-illustrated. So don't do that. Story first, but then you just hire a freelance illustrator. Um they you would have a contract with them. Um Depending on the illustrator, sometimes they'll sell you the copyright outright, but that is much more rare because then they can't do anything with that art. It's no longer theirs. You don't even have to give them credit. So most won't do that. Most will just give you the commercial usage rights, which is what you need to be able to sell it in a book. So you would just have a contract with them that spells out all the terms of the agreement, the payment, the due dates, who owns which rights, um, and then you both sign it, and then you work together and you do the thing.
Yeah, and then to your last question, do you divide up the rights of the work? So we really have freedom of contract here. Like Vicky's saying, you could lay out whatever you want in the contract. I would never divide up the rights with an illustrator because I don't want to have to, for the rest of my life, I don't want to have to be like, oh, you have 30% of the royalties and I have this. Let's go over the accounting and let me send you my monthly check or yearly check or quarterly check. And every quarter they're emailing me like, what about this week? Like, it's better for both parties if you don't divide up the rights, but one person just gives the rights to the other and pays them for it, or it would be like a increase. The illustrator would charge a little bit more because the author is getting the rights. So like, okay, my illustrator will be like, yeah, you have all the rights to everything, but because keeping that in, and then they set their price accordingly. So I just give a flat fee to my illustrator and I own all the rights to everything. So I don't need to bother giving them royalty checks for the rest of my life. But you could do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can do whatever both parties will agree to, but
Yes.
I agree with the royalty thing. Now on the traditional publishing side, if you are an author only and you want to be traditionally published, you don't do anything with an illustrator at all, unless you yourself are the illustrator. A traditional publisher will hire the illustrator, do the contract, the payments, they will pay them royalties and all of that stuff. They will handle that. And as long as it's in your contract with them, you can have input on the style or the artist. But you would know that at the contract stage with the traditional publisher, whether or not they'll let you have input on that. Um, but that's the one thing you don't want to do is do not hire an illustrator if you want to go the traditional publishing route. Um, because while it can be done, it's a huge pain in the butt. And more often than not, I see it work against an author because then if I'm sending this to an editor, they're like, ooh, we can't make changes because the art's already done. We like developmentally I see a plot hole, but we couldn't do anything about it because the art's already done, that type of thing. Whew, let me see if we missed any. I'm like, I feel like we missed one. Maybe not. Oh, okay, this one's interesting.
Right. Or can they safely write different genres without worrying of losing?
I think this one depends a lot on the specifics because, okay, so you get a contract, your debut novel is coming out. How are you branding yourself online? Like what are you putting out there on social media? Like are you positioning the brand as you? Are you positioning the brand as, you know, your psychological suspense series or something like that? Are you, you know, an influencer in a different way? So I feel like the first question is, how are you putting yourself out there in the world? And then second, whether or not the fan base is involved depends on what you're doing there. Because if, okay, so right now, I have a very strong audience for my children's picture books, but I am currently penning an adult horror. That is not going to be the same audience. I am not going to be able to tap into, I'm not going to, you know, jump on in my current social media where I talk about my children's books and be like, hey guys, you want to read this? Just not the same audience at all. So for that, I'm going to use a pen name. But if you have something that's close enough, like maybe you've written suspense and now you're transitioning into more thriller or horror tinged thriller or something like that, your audience might be okay with that subtle of a shift and you can still tap into it. But it purely depends on who is your audience and what are you writing and what, when you say different genres, how drastic is the difference? But at the same token, I would say if you're trying to build a fan base, you probably shouldn't jump around very much at the beginning either, because you're going to stretch yourself really thin trying to keep up with all of the marketing things for different audiences and engagement. Oh, I can't even imagine those social media accounts. And then trying to trademark like a million different brands all at once. Right now, Josh, tell us about your brand a little bit.
Yeah, so it's a good question because I have a similar pickle that I'm in because I've written, so my book series is called Annabelle and Eden at annabelleandeden.com, named after my two of my kids, Annabelle and Eden, and it's on science and critical thinking and the Big Bang and how we're all made of stardust. And my slogan that I should get a trademark on is big questions for little thinkers. For example, my fourth book is called What Happens When We Die, which secular homeschooling moms basically forced me to write. I was at one of their conferences and they're like, you have to write this book. We need a book on death that's science-based and that leaves room for people of faith, but at the same time, you know, just really explains it from a science-based perspective. And I saw that physicists had beautiful things to say about the end of life. So I made that book and it was one of my most successful. So these sort of big questions is what my book series is about. And only because I have 10 titles in the series, now I'm thinking of doing another series on a little bit of a different topic, which is really just Dr. Seuss type of no topic at all, but just really just goofy, fun books without any real message besides entertainment and word rhyming. So yeah, it's a tricky thing, but you know, because it's been 8 or 9 years and I've built a series on really the same messaging and the same cause or message that I'm trying to promote. I was able to build a Facebook page and really attract a certain kind of readership. And if you want to, it's kind of like building a career. I mean, you don't want to jump around too much. If you come out with 2 books in one thing and then another topic and then another topic, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you build 5 or 6 titles minimum in a certain topic, then I think it's okay to go to other things. Again, this entire conversation is assuming that you want to sell books and make money. If you're just following your creative aspirations, then, you know, hey, do whatever you want. You might not sell a lot, and that's perfectly great if that's what you're doing. So it's really, you have to ask yourself, like, how much am I in this to sell books? And how much am I in this to fulfill my own creative ambitions? Those are
I
two different
love
parties.
well, I love that's what it keeps coming back to because um I don't know if it's just the former teacher in me, but that is one of my biggest pet peeves is when I see someone say, "This is the best way, period." And I'm like, "But everybody is so different." Like time even now, I'm doing less self-publishing than ever before because I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old constantly climbing on me. And so I don't have the same amount of time to deal with logistics the same way that I did a few years ago, and that will change again in a few years down the line. So things ebb and flow, and people are so different, their budgets are so different, their time, their personalities. So with anything, educate yourself and then figure out what your situation looks like to be able to determine what is actually best for you. We are almost at the end here. So, any last parting words of advice, Josh?
I hate to self-promote again, but I want to help people and I want to get on the phone with you all and tell you what you have to protect and how to do it. So if you go to itsgottoBeMagic.com, that's where my Kickstarter is, and there is a reward there. It was $240 and it got cut in half, so it's $120 for a 1-hour phone call with me, in which I hope to give you more value than a $500 phone call with another lawyer would be. Probably, I think a lot more than that. So I want to thank everyone for coming. You definitely want to file a copyright application and a trademark application. If not now, then in some point in the future. And yeah, this was just a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, Vicky.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always down for an ask me anything. Demystify this lovely creative industry we're in.
Amazing.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll have more of these in the future, but until then, bye everyone, and don't forget to check out Josh's Kickstarter. Bye all.
Everyone.